Okay, so welcome everyone to the Super Tuesday, March 3rd meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission. And tonight we have the pleasure of meeting in Haddon Hall for the audience. Okay, we have no public hearings tonight. And does anyone have any changes to the agenda or additions to the agenda? It's a pretty brief agenda, depending on how long we talk about certain things. Does anyone have anything? No, I actually do. Well, let's do the minutes first. Let's do the minutes first. So, everyone get a copy of the minutes? Everyone. Can you just sign me that?
Yep.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of 2/18/2020?
I motion to approve minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. The minutes are approved. All in favor? I said that out of order. Wait,
You don't have,
I don't have to
you
do
don't
that.
vote on minutes.
thank you. I had it right, but then I got it wrong.
Just want to vote on everything.
It's voting day. Okay, the minutes are approved. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is administrative matters, and there's nothing under there on this agenda, but I realize that we need to have an annual meeting, which means, among other things, certain positions are up for reappointment, and depending on whose place you took when you joined the board, that affects when your appointment is up. And your appointment is up, Kevin. So you have to get reappointed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So all that and yours is as well.
I think mine is.
And yours
too.
is too, so.
I remember the select board saying, it'll just automatically re-up it.
It doesn't automatically re-up.
They will do a mass reappointment typically, the select board.
Yeah.
In the past.
So until after town meeting, obviously, it's basically, you just go in and you do this, what you did before, except for you have experience now.
It may not be good. You get paid twice as much.
No, you don't.
0 times 2 is
And are we all set with the stipends and all that?
I
What?
did not yesterday.
We get a pittance.
We get something. Have you gotten
You get
anything?
$5 a meeting.
Yeah, $5
$5 a meeting.
compared to.
covers gas for
I
those guys
know,
who have to drive.
Joel got a raise last night at $10 a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
When that's supposed to come around?
I did, I also wanted to, we have,
Once a year.
okay, so we have,
You mentioned.
no, I'll do that, just wait. So, we need to schedule, I think we'll probably have to have the annual meeting in April, because I'm not gonna be here next time, so maybe, which I guess we can do that, that's fine, right? And so what else do we need to do? I think my chairmanship is up. Have I been, I think so. I think I've been a chair for way too long.
You just started.
I did not.
You're
just
here,
start.
Uncle.
You've only been a co-chair for 1 year.
No.
Technically.
Yeah.
No.
How many years were you
3.
chair before that?
You can only be the chair for 3 years,
Oh,
so.
is that right?
But I don't think we set any limit on co-chair.
So,
There was actually that discussion when you created the co-chair.
Yeah.
Co-chair is good for at least 6 then.
oh, because it's only half as hard. I'm not so sure about that. I think I'll be the minute taker now.
So typically you have, it says the Bristol Planning Commission shall elect the chairperson and vice chair and clerk at its organizational meeting in May.
Oh, in May, okay,
Yeah,
good. I just assumed that we had to do it in March because that's when the appointments, that's fine. Yeah, it didn't make sense to me that it would be now. Too much going on. Okay, well, we have lots of time to figure that out. So, okay, so I don't know how long I've been chair.
I'll take 2 minutes and figure that out.
Okay. Well, Sue is still on the board. I don't know what that means, but.
What?
Sue Kavanaugh is still on the board. Were you ever on the board when Sue Kavanaugh was on?
Oh, when you started, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That's what you're saying.
So that's just coming up. And the other piece is, so we have some vacancies. We have one vacancy, and then Mark informed me yesterday, that he is probably going to.
Wait, what's the other vacancy? Don't we have 9?
Tyler.
Oh, you're.
No,
No.
Tyler, Lloyd, that's Lloyd.
That's what Tyler left.
Tyler,
Oh,
Masters.
Tyler left.
Yeah, yeah.
Evening, Bill.
So, and there's Bill,
So we have, so there's 3 vacancies.
right. So, and we have an observer visitor, Jeff, how do you pronounce your last name? Lunston. And he is thinking about becoming a member of the planning commission. And you're also looking at the conservation commission as well?
Yeah, but I think this was more interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So everybody behave yourselves, because we need another member. Okay. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Sorry.
We missed you.
Well, I missed you.
Okay, so, on to old business, which is subdivision regulations. So last time, we all got a draft of the subdivision regs, or the unified,
Planning document.
thank you. And Adam is going to come to the next meeting on the 17th, and did you talk to him about that as well? But he has it on his calendar to, question and answer, and so have questions, so have a good discussion, you can, pick his brain, and I'm not gonna be here.
Convenient.
For me, well, so, just try to make the most of that. And I guess that's all. I guess we'll just do that for that meeting. That would be the only thing on the agenda. Okay? I mean, you could even get questions ahead of time, maybe. I don't know what you're doing here. You have nothing to do, so. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that, Chris? I mean, you have questions, I'm sure. You have some, do you have?
Not a lot,
Okay.
because we went back and forth
Right.
already, so to get the draft to the point where
Okay,
what was presented, so.
okay. So try to, read it so that you get enough questions to make it a worthwhile time, because it's a little complicated. So we are going to move on to the plan, which we are slogging through. I did put out flyers, and I'm going to post a hearing in Addison Independent, not a hearing, but a warning for the open house on April 7th. I made an announcement last night at the town meeting. I said free pizza, and there was a reaction, so that was good. So we might get some people, which would be great. And we talked about the format. So we're just going to keep, it's not, obviously, everything is going to be finished, but the goal is to have a good selection of the maps, especially anything that we have, changed or added or anything like that. And the goals. I would like to have the goals and policies for each section. And then to set that up and have it a very informal question and answer. People walk around and, have a place for people to leave comments, and for us, people to be there to ask questions of. So tonight we are going to ask everyone to take a look at the land use section. And what Andrew and I did was just take a look at the goals and policies and tasks, and not necessarily change anything, but maybe try to organize them a little bit differently. We did this with the housing, and I don't know if Tom and I shared that though. But to try to match up the goals with the specific policies more and try to eliminate some repetition and just have it a little clearer. A lot of town plans do that, they'll list a goal and then they'll list the policies below it. And I think it's helpful to the reader, they can relate back to how that goal is gonna then evolve. So I'm gonna let Andrew
Take it away.
take it away.
All right.
But if people, we have the, do people want to ask questions, or does anyone have anything they want to talk about before we start that?
I mean, Kevin sent out his document, there's,
Yep.
I know, I
So
do.
we got comments from Kevin and Bill, so thank you for those.
I don't see bills.
Bill, did you send it just to? Bill, did you just send your comments to me and Katie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we can send those out to the group.
When did Kevin show up?
I didn't send them to the group, because I get confused as to whether I sent it to Andrew, Katie, and I actually sent it to Chris as well, as a one.
Yeah, well, we talked about not really sending it all out to the group. We talked about people
Yep.
commenting on them and then discussing them
Yep.
together.
Okay.
So we looked primarily at the land use goals. Yes. Here, we can start with this. So one of those, and one of these.
This is the same document sent out, like, 3
Yeah.
weeks ago.
Yep. So the main body of the document, we are updating with some of the changes that folks have suggested. Most of it is pretty minor, but we should probably go through it. But we were going to start with the goals and policies just to make sure we got through those. So as these come around, there's 2 documents. The one with yellow on it is actually the one I showed you last time, which is the original goals, policies, and actions. The one with red, dated March 3rd, is a slightly tweaked. We didn't make many changes because we want to be able to discuss the changes that were proposed. The format is slightly different because we talked about doing this in the flood resilience section, and so I'm basically going back and trying to do all the sections this way. So before I get too far, I want to make sure it's on the right track. So basically, I think this was the longest set of goals, policies, actions that exist in any section, which makes sense because a lot of the plan is about land use. So what we did was basically try to condense the goals into 3 main ones, which the wording is pretty similar. The red text is what has been added or moved from a different part of the same statement. So there's a goal that basically refers to the 3 different planning areas. This is number 1. Goal number 2 talks about managing for cultural and natural resources in the community, which crosses those 3. And then the 3rd goal is about process. So basically the process by which things will be changed and updated and taken into account. The rest of the goals that were on that original sheet have been moved to other places, and if you flip to the next page, we'll come back. But you'll see after the policies, they're basically directly underneath those goals. So that's what we're trying to do to make it relate to the goals. And you'll see in the parentheses at the end of each one, something like P13A, P13B. Those refer back to the actual policies that they came from. So if you want to reference back, you can see exactly where they came from. So does that kind of make sense as a guideline? We'll go more into it, but that's sort of your map.
So this is the overview, and then the next page.
Yeah, so the 3,
specifics for each one of the pieces.
the policies that go under each goal.
Excellent. Good.
Now I want to
Good way to do it.
ask a clarifying question.
Sure.
When you did this,
Yes.
was this taken exactly from the existing plan? Okay, and then you just highlighted the yellow as things we had questions about?
Yeah, the yellow
Okay.
was things that I thought we could look at, and I just didn't take that up. Yeah, and then,
This?
yeah,
Okay,
but it's still in there.
right.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so what, you could also compare this sheet, this packet with the existing
Yeah.
plan. So, if, not, they're not the same, they're different, but they reference each other. So what I was asking, Andrew, is this plan is basically what's in the existing plan, but just some notes on it.
What does the yellow mean?
The yellow was just notes for things to take a look at. So it's basically, you'll see that, especially in the goals, those were ones that got moved down because they weren't really goals, they were more policy statements. But just ones to make sure to take a closer look at. So it was mostly for my benefit in looking at it, but
Did any of them disappear?
no, they should all still be in the same,
Maybe in a slightly different form, but.
yeah.
But that's what, I said it was very important that we didn't just
Katie wouldn't let
eliminate.
me get rid of
Eliminate
things
anything.
willy-nilly. I just
But I
wanted
did
to delete
think,
it.
I did think that they should be rearranged a little bit, because it is confusing. And there is some repetition and a lot of goals and policies. I don't know.
But we also know that this has gone through a lot of work, so we didn't want to lose pieces that may have historical precedent and
Historical
reasoning.
value.
There are a few like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can tell.
so,
I could tell.
so if it's okay, and for reference, I brought both the original maps that are from the town website and a little challenging to read, and then just a little bit blown up of the same area with brighter colors with ink that hasn't faded yet. So if anybody needs a map
That's not X.
that I'm proposing,
Right, okay. So there are two policies on the bottom of page 3.
Which one are we doing?
Okay, not the one that says 33020. No, not the one with yellow on it.
The black and red one.
Not 330, I'm
Okay.
sorry, that's my birthday.
What page?
3320. The page 3, there are two policies are on the bottom of the
Oh,
page.
those are policies.
And one says move to economic development section and move to recreation section. So all of this packet that was
those
done
are
today
suggestions. None of that is, we have to work through this.
is all, yeah, and it's all discussable, if that's a word.
But those are ones that I think were noted by folks that sent comments, and Bill can probably fill us in on historic precedent and why they're there, but seemed less related to land use, but worth preserving. So that's why those are there. And they didn't really fit in the three cross-cutting goals. So
I see what you did, yeah.
is that,
No, actually, I
Clear as
agree
mud.
with this, because you simplified this for the reader, and if they want to go through the minutia, they turn the page and there it is.
Well,
Well, we may not
going
have,
forward, you wouldn't
we
have
wouldn't have
this
this first.
first sheet, it would just be right into this, sheets 2 and 3.
We wouldn't,
Well, we
we
could-
wouldn't repeat that sheet. That was just,
yeah, we could.
because those goals are on the,
So what happens to this?
So I think in some plans, they put it at the beginning of the chapter, or they do sort of the goals section at the very beginning.
but that goal is right here, right?
Yeah.
So this is
Right,
kaput.
the way out.
I mean, I don't care. Is this out, or is this going to be placed someplace else?
No, so, yeah, so it's
I
not.
just need it for the minutes, you know?
Yeah, that's what we're working through, Bill. We're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
You're
It
like
may
James
change.
Madison.
I have a feeling it may change. This is
Yeah.
one whole goal, right?
Yep, and then it's
Where-
split into 3 policy, but
Oh,
but
okay.
it's short, it's condensed on that second page, so the wording is not all there. So if we are gonna get rid of this first section, I've gotta update
You gotta wordsmith some actual.
Okay,
You
okay.
can actually create a goal.
You gotta move these into here
Right.
to be full text.
So the goal,
Is the goal, there is no real goal.
Yeah.
I have a question, and this goes to, I guess, Bill and Chris, because you were here when this was done, if you remember. But in the policies, it gets in to talking about the different areas. And it talks about the village planning area, and then there's a whole bunch of policies under it, and then it talks about the rural, this is rural
Rural ag.
conservation. Oh, rural ag planning area with a bunch of policies, but then there wasn't a section on rural conservation with a bunch of policies.
It's just the conservation planning area for one, we didn't name it the rural conservation.
It's just conservation planning, isn't it? It's not rural conservation.
Correct.
'Cause there's just
But
three
on
planning
the
areas.
map, it is called out as rural conservation planning area.
Oh. So, no, it is, it's just conservation. Oh, the key says one thing and the map says another thing.
Well, in the
Well, yeah.
existing one,
Oh, okay.
it
Okay.
says rural.
Do you have your original plan? Because I think it's
No,
also
it's
called.
not
They
in-
call it both.
Yeah.
it's not in that.
In the text as well.
In the
It's not,
text.
oh,
It's not.
I thought you meant the
Yeah,
map.
I mean,
I
the
thought-
policy, like, policy one, we call it out as the conservation planning area. And then when you go further out, you run into the rural conservation. It's cute.
So, which is it?
In the body itself, it's rural.
Yeah, it's actually rural conservation area planning area, which
That's a little funny.
seems like maybe one of those areas should not be.
That's a lot of
Take
ag.
out one of the areas, but there was, as you will
Oh, here.
discover many of these questions, a spirited debate over the choice of words. And as I recall, the word rural was added to make sure that we remembered that it wasn't just purely for conservation purposes, that it might have other rural purposes, including residential or working landscape.
Okay.
That was the idea.
And it is all outside the village planning area, so I guess rural.
This is-
So, would it work for folks to just go through, like we've done before, one by one, and be efficient and knock it out, and have a spirited debate in which we check
You
out?
don't touch the body of the document at
I
all?
was gonna say, are there changes to
There-
that proposed?
I think, well, we talked about starting this way. I mean, there are things in the body, but it seems like the body should really, oh, I remember when we went through the zoning, this sort of approach that, this is an update, it's not meant to rewrite the plan. But there are things that do need to get changed in there, because there's things that are dated and things that are incorrect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that has to get changed. But unless it's something that everybody, I'd like some feedback on this, but this was not the intent to go in and
I
change
remember
it.
looking at it and there was questions as to, I know there's a lot of history in this section and a lot of things were done for a purpose. It is a rather large section. And my only question was, is all of it still relevant?
No, I mean, I was reading through today and I had a lot of notes on the side, but it wasn't anything big, but it was just, well, that's different now and that needs to be worded differently. and-
Honestly, the first thing that I wrote through that down
Yeah.
is a third of the document's based on extraction. The topic's over. You can list it, that you can mention that it's prohibited in the two areas. We use that document to rewrite the zoning regs. The zoning regs are crystal clear that it's not available enough.
Well, I would like your feedback on that. I asked you
Yeah.
because I wasn't on the
my two
board.
cents is, I think that.
There is a lot. I was afraid to touch anything that
No.
said gravel
I-
or quarrying, or what's the difference? Or, right?
Well, yeah, definitely.
Well, pouring involves dynamite.
Well, because like extraction is sort of allowed, but quarrying isn't allowed. And Andrew said, what's the difference? I'm like, ask the board. Don't
No,
ask.
you said don't ask.
I did say that. Don't ask, don't tell. So yes, there are parts of that. But I thought if we started with the goals and then we can go back and kind of straighten out the,
That hopefully that would lead us.
I mean, if people
to
want to
some
like
technology.
pull back on some of that stuff, we're not going to pull back on the policies. I mean, the goals and policies, if we're strong with what they say, then maybe we don't need all the discussion. I don't know. I mean, that's not for me to make the decision, it's for the board to make the decision. So,
Folks have a preference with, or okay with starting with goals and then either referring to the body as it comes up, maybe through extraction or other issues.
Knock it out.
Is that,
I think that's a good way to go, and there might be some opportunities to make the body more concise.
yeah, okay.
all right, so the original goal was that Bristol will maintain and enhance its historic settlement pattern anchored by a village planning area containing high-density residential development and all vital municipal services, surrounded by a rural countryside with the possibility of one or more hamlets. So we basically took that and turned it into goal number 1 of Bristol will maintain and enhance its natural environment. So that's taken from the original goal 1C. And historic settlement pattern of a compact village surrounded by rural countryside, including, and then we have our 3 areas, our village planning area, that is the commercial and social center of the town, containing high-density residential development, commercial business, and all vital municipal services. A rural agricultural planning area, primarily for agricultural and energy production and limited residential use. And a rural conservation planning area, so I'm taking out that first area, primarily for environmental conservation, forestry, recreation, and substantially restricted development. Are there thoughts, concerns, tweaks?
Maybe a little wording.
That counts as a tweak
Yeah,
and a thought.
I didn't say no. I think just the including part should be rephrased at least to be maybe comprised of or made up of 3 areas or something like that.
Right. So it doesn't sound like there's other ones that are.
Yeah, because it just kind of runs
Right.
into it. Just
Right. Are folks okay with comprised of?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's more specific.
Next.
I think it continues to be a good compromise.
Anybody else? Okay.
I get really confused with the use of the word commercial, industrial, and manufacturing. They seem to be all too often used interchangeably. And in this situation, we're talking about commercial, we don't talk anything about that nasty stuff called industrial, which is creating jobs in there.
Well, we have that. I think it's important to have light industrial because we have light industrial. We just have a new, and that's just something that's different in this plan than the last one. So I don't, is it not in here?
I don't, so it says commercial, so to me, the first thing I think about is commercial, and I don't know if there's any definitions defining this anywhere. Commercial to me is retail business.
Right. But some,
And then
it's not always though. Because
loosely-
when we
loosely
have,
defined.
So.
because they can be commercial, that's not
Commercial use
retail.
by the definitions in the zoning are the business of providing goods, services, or facilities for sale or distribution on a profit or nonprofit basis, except for light or heavy industries, home occupations, forest or agricultural uses, public utility facilities and lines, roads, and outdoor recreation.
But that's defined in the zoning regs, it's not defined.
Right, what I'm saying is that, so commercial is just what you said, it's retail, basically, retail and distribution. And light industry has its own set of definitions. And
so restaurants fall into commercial.
Goods or services, right?
I
So
would
yes.
think restaurants,
Yeah.
right?
What?
And I would say
Right.
restaurants do. and
So we're basically describing, we need to describe what's in our village center.
But in that area, is there not also light industry?
There is light industry, and I think we do need to say light
I
industry.
think
I thought we did.
What you were getting at,
Yeah,
right?
I think we loosely use the terms, and I think we need to tighten it up.
Hmm.
So if we have like a call out box in the main section or in the economic development section or both, it says, here's what we mean by commercial, here's what we mean by light industrial, and maybe in this clause we add commercial and light industrial business for the village planning area. So
You've got offices too.
commercial would be
It's
office
business.
space too. That'd be goods and services.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. And professional services.
Yeah, there's a whole list in the,
So we can take out
Unified
vital, we
center.
don't have to have that word in there.
For as far as, I don't want to say commercial, but for industrial purposes for definitions, that's kind of the zoning talks about that apart from light industry and commercial, is there heavy industry or anything else in the village planning area? If we're listing them, we should
No,
have
not
all of
heavy.
those.
It's not
Heavy
allowed.
prohibited throughout the entire town.
Okay.
So
Well, maybe for this goal, we could say mixed use. Could we do that? So we don't have to
as long as
list?
you define it somewhere, as you can use mixed use.
Well, maybe we define it in the text.
In the body?
In the body of the text, so that.
List down all these, so it's not
So
in the
then we
goal.
don't, yeah, because we want to make the goals concise and readable, so.
But traditional planning, when you think mixed use, you're thinking of residential / commercial mix, residential over top of commercial.
No, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be,
Right, but, so if you say, but either way, I mean, that's just when I think that's.
right. Well, if we talk about it in the.
Multi-use.
And, well, in all the discussion right now about compact villages, they refer to them as mixed use. And that can be light industry, that can be commercial, and it's residential, and
Most
it's,
compact villages don't want industrial in their light industry.
well, light, you know, if it's a nice little brewery, they might, right?
No, ask Waitsfield.
Well, okay, well, we, don't- you know.
Warren.
Yeah, Lawson's built a multi-million-dollar facility because they were told no, they couldn't do it where they were.
Okay, well, anyways,
and there is a village mixed in the zoning, is that right? It's kind of the western village. All right, so we need to make sure that that's.
so we have to get that clear and make sure that we get everything covered.
So is the idea here to define commercial in a footnote, or what are we doing?
I don't think we need to do that. We need to
Reword it.
this is good because this is gonna inform the text, so we should take notes on that. So that we need, you can say in your minutes, we need to make sure we get industrial and commercial in this first goal. We don't exactly know how it's gonna be written yet. So, well, I don't, maybe you do. But the goal is gonna reflect what is written in the body of this section. So the idea is
The
that.
body meaning here, right?
No, the body meaning
The land use section.
the narrative of the
Okay.
section.
All right.
That then this is summarizing basically what has been talked about. You're leaving.
And also in that first bullet, Katie, you said something about vital, but I think we should strike all as well. And just say municipal services.
Sure.
And I don't think,
I think, was that intended to be water and sewer for municipal services?
whatever, but I don't think we
But we
want
don't
to
have
say
water.
they're all in
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have all.
Well, when we talk about municipal services, when we talk about water, sewer, homeless services.
So that could be
police, fire,
police,
rescue.
yeah,
I think so.
roads.
Your town offices and your,
post office.
So they aren't all
That's vital.
located in the,
right.
village planning area.
They may not be in the future. The second bullet, limited residential use. Where did we pick that up?
That was in
And
there.
then also substantially restricted development in the third bullet.
So, I took that language directly from. Yeah, so I think the limited you had pointed out was in there before.
Here.
Yeah. This is it. Okay, yeah, so in the original policy 14, maintain the present rural agricultural planning area primarily for agricultural and limited residential use in accordance with the following principles. So that's where the word limited came from.
Are we really doing that?
Well, that's something from the old plan. I don't necessarily, I mean, I hate to keep picking on you, Bill, but I'm gonna pick on you.
That's okay.
So you wanna say something about limited?
Well, I think that was a compromise, recognizing that, as I recall, the zoning district is either 5 acres or 2, depending on where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was more restrictive than in and around the core.
Right,
I think that's how it was intended
right.
to mean.
So that, okay, so that would lead you to zone it at,
And it is zoned with that.
Yeah.
So it's just less dense, really. I think that might be better than limited. I mean,
I think less dense would be better. And as we're reading and I'm thinking about it here, we should recognize we have some industrial in that.
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is in there.
It might be in the policies, but I think you're right to add it to the goal itself.
So, as we sit here and we're talking about this stuff, does it make sense to have these areas spelled out in the goals like this, as opposed to crafting a goal for that area? Is the goal to keep it that? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Or are we
well,
saying
I mean,
that's what's in it?
If we, yeah, so I guess that comes down to what we want for our goal. So, yeah, I guess if there's a way you want to move it ahead towards something, then we would put that here in terms of the goal statement of what we're moving
Meaning-
towards.
Your question is, do these have to stay worded like this? Is that,
They-
Or-
do they have to be described?
The more I
like
look
this?
at them, they don't look like goals.
I mean, we can work them into any,
I mean, I
Right.
see the first part as being a goal of maintain
right,
natural environment and historic settlement patterns, right? I see that,
right,
but these other bullets don't seem
right. They're just describing
right,
the planning areas.
right. Which then, if we were to go to this,
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like there's enough there to really.
right,
Yeah, so I mean, I think it was a way that we could organize the policies. So if it makes sense to, and because the village planning area was already in the original goal, as sort of a descriptive, this is what we want, we just expanded on that with the other two as a way of organizing it.
it could be, I see what you're saying. I don't, this is how we started it, by trying to kind of group it into 3 groups. Because otherwise it was just all over the place.
No, that makes sense.
But you're right, those bullet points are not necessarily a goal. And
Yeah, I think the
And
first
then
part is the goal.
the first part is sort of the main planning goal of the state of Vermont. It's like,
Yeah, that's
condensed.
the required.
and, but we could, look at, just keep that goal, and then the policies under it could, whatever, they could just refer to different areas.
That'd be one way. Another way to look at it would be that these bullet points are, in effect, goals, because we like the way they are and we'd like them to stay that way.
And that's how we started it.
It's a matter of perception.
Yeah.
Or you could just add the word thriving
You could.
to all of them.
Thriving is a real good word.
Thriving
Thriving
commercial.
and striving,
Yeah.
both good words.
Well, why don't we mull that over
Okay.
and just work, because they're basically bullet points right now. And look at how they're actually being described and how we're actually, the other goals and policies that are written. So, does that make sense? Okay.
I think so. So, the last thing I wrote was to change limited to less dense for the rural planning area. But it sounded like maybe wordsmithing the substantially restricted development. I don't want to lose that question from Kevin.
But I'm just questioning if that's what we're doing, if that's what we want to be doing. Isn't it according to?
If it's along the same lines as the first one, I would assume that's because it's
25
10 acre.
It's 25
25, sorry.
So
Yeah.
based on Bill's comments, that just talks to the lot size.
Yeah.
And what lot size would be.
So instead of substantially restricted, even less dense,
The lesser.
floats higher.
Widely spaced.
Sparsest.
I don't know if that works.
And comparatively sparse density.
Or low level of development.
Sparse residential development, is that what you said?
Relatively, yeah. And relatively, I don't know what I could say.
You could just say in some, what about in some residential development? Or is that?
It doesn't say residential development. It
Oh,
just-
restricted development.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to say restricted at all.
More regulation.
That's what we don't want to say that.
Low density rural development.
Low density,
That sounds good.
yeah.
I just,
What was the change?
Low density rural development.
Is this number 3 we're working on?
No, it's
No.
one
Part 3, yeah.
bullet
point.
3.
I'm taking that phrase from the unified zoning,
Nice.
by the way. So
Which makes sense.
trying to reference here the conservation zone. Is that right?
And what was the change in that place?
Low density.
Low density residential replaces substantially restricted.
Low density rural, right?
I thought you said residential.
Well, he said low density rural residential, but it could, I don't think we need to say rural again. We start with rural. Well, that's the name of the area, but it's rural. I don't think we need to say that again.
Low density residential development.
I mean, I would almost just do low density development.
Yeah.
Because
There's
it's
other
sort of broad.
Right, okay.
Just say residential.
There you go.
All right.
That's good, Chris.
And drain, what are we replacing?
Low density.
Summer steel built. I believe it's summer.
I didn't get one.
I know
Sure.
they didn't have any vote stickers when I voted.
They had them, they didn't give me one.
You gotta take it.
Yeah.
So that huge roll in this morning.
Yeah, they were
I
still
know,
all
they were
there.
giving them out. Stingy.
Oh, they offered.
Frugality.
I went too early, they weren't awake yet.
Okay, so leaving aside
Okay.
Robert's question about whether we should define those areas or have a goal more explicitly for those areas. Is everyone okay
So,
with that description?
I just have
Yep.
one other question. So you said that the rural ag planning area for ag and energy production didn't, I mean, if you look at the energy plan, you're authorizing energy everywhere. But there was no citing that you omitted all.
True.
So why call it out as I mean, is that the preferred?
That is the preferred area, is all that rural agricultural area. So that's,
So there's no preferred anywhere other than rural ag?
no, it's all within that area. That was the starting point.
Apart from the individual areas that were already considered preferred, the brown fields and the landfills and.
So there was none of the conservation areas?
Not for, I mean, it's not off the table, but because it has to follow the same restrictions as everything else. But the preferred area,
The reason I'm asking is why are you listing it as part of the land use when the overall energy encouragement is throughout the town? I mean, energy generation is really throughout the town. This is.
It kind of worked out that way too, that most of the rural conservation area is restricted because of.
State and federal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So maybe we should say preferred energy production as opposed to energy production.
That might make sense because
Yep.
people have their own,
Well, I mean, all I'm trying to say is that
people can put it on the roof
That's the
and
only place you can do it.
Right,
I wanted
right.
but that's the preferred.
if you
location.
say preferred. You got that?
preferred energy production. And somebody earlier said that this is also industrial. So I've got agricultural, industrial, and preferred energy production, and less dense residential use. Is that detailed and inspiring enough?
Getting back to your comment, in the body of the text, we will be discussing each one of these areas, and so this may be redundant. So we'll have to see what kind of balance we have in that. But this is helpful to do that now.
Okay.
Okay, so number 2 is directly from the previous goals. You'll notice there's no red text. It's land development will be regulated and managed in a manner that takes into account the important cultural and natural resources of our community. And I think the way we were reading that is that there are cultural and natural resources that sort of cross the boundaries of the different areas mentioned above. And then some of the policies also cross those areas. So basically keep that as a separate goal, that those things will be taken into account.
So I had changed the word regulated to encouraged when I was looking at this document. So we're regulating it through zoning, I guess.
Right. So that's not really encouraging it, that's regulating it.
it is a regulation. The encouragement's over, we're regulating.
Oh, Billy.
That's strongly encouraging.
Yes, that's very strong encouragement. You could say guided.
Guided's good.
Why are we dancing around with the regulation? I mean, we made those regulations. What's wrong with it?
Because some of us aren't as excited by the word regulation as you are.
For a moment, I'm conservative, just for a moment.
You can always remember the words regulated and that does not really impact the field.
Will be managed in a manner.
So we're changing regulated to what?
We had a vote for guided, we had a vote for encouraged, and we had a vote for taken out.
Regulated.
We just say
Will be managed.
will be managed.
That's kind of like the Democratic primary. There's 5 different candidates here.
They're gonna,
Where do we end up?
they're gonna
Everybody's still
manage each other, we don't know yet.
We ain't going Sanders and we ain't going Mike, so I mean, someplace in the middle.
We're not allowed to talk about that at this meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Polls have closed.
We're not.
Fair enough, I just thought I'd throw a little instigation into this.
Well, it's like, what
You
is
mean
going?
just now?
I mean, we
For
could,
this time, right, okay.
For now.
Actually, in item 3, we've got regulation again, so if we change it, if we leave it in both, that's fine. If we change it, we shouldn't be looking probably at the term in both of them.
So have we come to a consensus on changing regulation yet?
because if it's land use planning and management, that's a whole different thing. That's like, that sounds different. I mean, this, but we can just say land use planning will be made through a process.
It's just if you eliminate the word regulation out of both those sentences, you
It's
don't
fine.
lose any.
It's a planning document
Okay.
anyways. It's not a regulated
Does the
document.
regulation, at least in the second one, is specifically referencing zoning? So land use planning and zoning, because the rest of it.
Right, we'll just say land use planning will be made through a process. Is that, you know? Or you
Oh, I-
think it should stay in?
I don't know. Are those separate enough things that they need to be called out, or is
The
the planning?
planning informs the zoning. This document informs the
Right.
zoning. document.
Yeah, I mean, and in all reality, I mean, we're moving towards a unified planning document, and we're trying to change the vernacular there as well, so I almost would not encourage using the word zoning.
Okay.
I'm okay with removing the words regulated and regulation in 2 and 3. For it to read, land development will be managed in a manner, yada, 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 and land use planning will be made through a process, yada, yada, yada.
Is there a second? No.
So could you reread that? Regulated, land development will be,
Managed.
Managed.
okay, got it. And in goal number 3, what's the change?
Take out the same two words, but flipped. So land use planning will be made through a process.
Will be managed again?
That's-
No,
that's
just
my-
will be made through a process.
Okay.
That is fair.
Got it.
Yeah, this is the easy part.
Phew, we got through the goals, maybe.
Well, this goal's different.
No.
It's the same, I just didn't know how much we were gonna change.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay. So if folks are okay moving to the next page with policies. Well, okay,
These
So-
are policies, this one here?
are you on page 2? Yes, so
It says goal 1 at the top, and that's for,
And then there's policy A, B.
yeah, this whole
those policies
page.
fall under the goal.
This whole page is under goal 1.
Back on page 1. Stop, just reread it one more time. I don't mean, there's a weird, you have a weird statement going on.
Okay.
With goal 1.
Goal 1.
We talk about the historic settlement patterns of a compact village surrounded by its rural countryside, including,
Comprised of.
I don't know, because it's like, it feels like your statement is saying that the rural countryside includes the following. Just the way that the word flow
Yeah.
goes. And it's,
We could,
do you see where I did
Yeah.
that?
You know what? You can say Bristol will maintain and enhance its natural environment and historic settlement pattern of a compact village that is surrounded by rural countryside,
period.
period.
Can we
The following areas, Bristol has the following planning areas.
That's what I say, the Bristol is made up of the following, is
Right,
comprised of the following
okay.
planning areas.
So you got that, Bill?
I'm getting it.
So between village and surrounding is village that is.
What was the second sentence?
Bristol is made up, comprised of the following planning areas.
Comprised,
Bristol is comprised of the following planning areas.
Or perhaps will be, since it's a goal.
It is.
Wording it like that makes it seem like even less of a goal for these sections,
I know.
because you're just listing them.
Bristol will be comprised of the
Or
thriving areas.
Unless you were to say something like Bristol will maintain its planning areas, or something like that. I mean, the first sentence speaks to
Right,
that, but when you break it out,
Okay.
it turns into just a list. No, it's the minutia.
No, it's important.
You should almost word it like, Bristol will maintain and enhance its natural environment and historic settlement patterns in the following areas. Boom, boom, boom. And it,
Then you'll have to repeat compact village and surrounded by countryside.
and that might work as a goal. Does that make it more bullish, Robert?
I think so. It just,
I think we get
I
the
agree.
idea. I think we get the, we can work on this. We get the idea.
Okay,
It's okay, Bill's got it.
Or it could be for the following planning areas. It's going to do this, this, and this to maintain the following planning areas or something like that. It becomes a goal.
so you're gonna wordsmith this, right, Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, because there's about,
Wait, I thought you wrote it out.
yeah, there's about 55 suggestions on this stuff. Okay,
can we get a couple amendments on the amendments?
Were you there? You weren't there.
I watched it.
Would you please? That's even more boring. No, it
easier.
wasn't boring. It was really exciting.
It's easier with the top one.
How much beer did it take?
I didn't have time for beer. I was chasing a toddler.
Listen, this was a 5-cup of coffee meeting for me.
And you left early
And
too.
I left early.
All right.
On to policy, page 2.
Policies page 2.
Okay.
Okay, so again, in parentheses is where it came from in your original policies. That doesn't mean it's
So you
permanent.
didn't take anything out.
It should have taken nothing out.
Right, so some of these already seem repetitive, but,
Hey, you gotta
no,
take
no,
that.
I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, so we have potential to,
No, that's not true. I took out policy number 1 because it was the same as goal number 1. I retract that statement. Of maintaining the town's historic settlement pattern. That seemed fairly redundant.
What does P4 mean, P15?
That's the policies of the original
Oh, I see.
plan. That's where it came from.
Okay.
So the sheet with the yellow on it, if you look under those policies, number 4, that
Oh, I see what
corresponds to
you're saying. I
that.
see what you're saying, okay, right, got it.
All right, that's it. It's my key to where it came from.
No,
Mostly for when you guys
actually-
ask, I can figure out where.
No, I understand.
And saying that, I noticed that in policy number 1 is where the phrase substantially restricts development. So I got an amen from over there.
So I'm not following the links here because policy A, maintain a pedestrian-friendly compact downtown, P4.
But that's back to here,
If I go to P4,
that's a health and safety deal.
Sorry, it's that one's P6.
oh, brother,
Okay.
another thing.
The intent was there.
so it sounded great.
If it was right.
Why didn't you understand it?
Oh, your numbers are way off.
All the
Okay.
way through?
I think so. Your next one's off too, I believe.
That's all right, let's roll.
It's okay.
Okay, policy A. Maintaining a pedestrian-friendly compact downtown from policy 6 with pedestrian and road traffic patterns that encourage use of the downtown area as the focus for business and municipal activities. From, which is a shortened shortened version of P13A.
I'm okay with that.
So these are meant to be like actable policies that get us to the goal of the thriving village area. Or,
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's it, yeah. Well, that sounds good to me. Are we okay with A?
I guess maybe we should say, is anyone not okay with A? And then if there's no, just as a way to keep going.
Okay.
Okay, hearing no disputes. Policy B, which comes from 13B, maintain the downtown designation status in order to receive federal and state grant money and other government assistance for making improvements in the village area.
I'm okay with that.
There was a much longer description
I
in
like the
the
short
original
sentence.
13B.
Yeah, we got, everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Policy C, fully supporting the Bristol core, which I think is the same as the Bristol
Yeah.
Downtown Community Partnership, so I
Yeah.
just replaced it.
Can we define, I didn't know what core was.
Yeah, you should.
It is already defined in the previous section, but we could just.
So what is
It's
it?
an acronym?
We should.
It's
It's
a
an
noun, the
acronym.
recreation, not an acronym.
No, it's not. That's right.
So fully supporting
I
the,
think I thought it was
Congress on
communication.
racial equality.
No, Ian's made it very clear many times that it's not an acronym.
Okay, not an acronym, but
In some places it says previously known
It's
as.
the BDCP.
so what are we changing this to? Supporting the,
Bristol core, in its efforts to beautify the downtown, increase pedestrian safety, organize downtown events, and strengthen businesses.
and
Is it a the, or is it just Bristol core?
I don't know.
It's Bristol Core.
what is core again?
It's what with the downtown development.
And we've defined this before.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah,
Fine.
it's,
Your cultural organization.
yeah, they support the downtown businesses
Okay.
with activities.
It's actually mandated by the state to have such.
Because of the
organization
downtown
use the
designation.
downtown-
It's part of
historic
that.
downtown designation.
I'm with that.
And we're gonna beautify it.
Are we okay with C?
And the only piece I have, because
Well,
we want to
I don't
find
think
that it's not just a
it's
downtown, is that I think it's a historic downtown designation, right? It's not the.
What?
Don't we have, officially it's a historic downtown designation, not just a downtown designation?
It's a designated downtown.
Okay.
I don't think
I
it's.
think, but we
It
do,
has historic value to it, and there is a historic downtown, but that's a different
like the
boundary.
Multiple determinations?
commercial discussion, I think downtown does get used for village and. or
Oh, did I
can
say
be
designated
designated.
downtown designation? But it's,
Yeah,
par-
But isn't-
it's a state, one of the state programs that we applied for in 2005. And we had to meet certain criteria. And and then have to continue by doing certain things, like we had this design review board. Or no, I guess it's
CBA?
design.
Nope.
Oh, the one for the downtown.
Right, and that's tied to it as well.
And that's kind of the Main Street, Village Green.
Well, wherever the downtown designated boundary is, and that got changed a couple years ago to include the co-housing.
Okay, so we should make clear whenever we say downtown, that we mean designated downtown. Is that fair? Or use the word village? One or the
I
other.
think
So you-
downtown designation, that's the proper term, right, for what's there?
It's either designated downtown or,
Or
Downtown,
a village center, because we're not a village center, right? We're designated downtown.
no, yeah, because it's one of the state programs. It's not village center, it's not growth center, it's a designated downtown.
Yep.
Which is different, because our population is different, and the process was different.
What's the change?
I think on policy C to add the word designated downtown, to beautify the designated.
Designated.
We don't need to say beautify, do we? I kind of agree with that. It's support, the support the business, because it's not just about beautification, it's about a lot of things.
In the original
Oh,
policy.
I'm sorry.
Efforts to beautify the downtown. So maybe it wasn't beautiful before, but now it is.
I
So-
think probably a better term would be to vitalize or maintain vitality or something like that. picky, I guess.
Folks okay with,
So where are we in this? We got designated downtown?
yes, but we're now hashing out the word beautify versus vitalize, or,
All right, let's just leave it as is. Let's not change it. And we can,
But we're already designated, right?
sure, yes.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
yes.
D.
He's taking over.
He's on his third cup of coffee. He's got 2 to go. Policy D, developing one or more new areas where light industry can be appropriately located within the village planning area.
Well, we've already done that. We did one. Do we need, should we keep that in there?
Well, it's a little bit different though.
Well, we
You're
did a
talking
whole
about
business
light
part.
industry, light industry.
But you also have the opportunity, you still have some potential growth centers with this, I mean, I look at Long Hill Road, which is part of your village.
Right.
So,
How about, but this makes it sound like there isn't one yet. So we have, maybe we
No,
can
it's
say
one or more
continue.
new areas.
Oh, okay.
Not one
All
or
right.
more areas.
Okay, I got it. That's fine. I think that's good.
D okay, everybody agree?
Yep.
E.
I'll read it. Preserving the town green and its open space to provide important recreational and social opportunities to town residents and visitors, and foster a sense of outdoor community space, which is a shortened version of 13G, I believe. Or not shortened, but rephrased.
Okay, are you with that?
We could find some.
Sure, preserving is okay? Should it be conserving?
Not
Or?
my favorite, yes, that's conserving, but in a spirit of compromise. I can live with it.
The town green can be preserved
Yeah. One
with formaldehyde
small.
forever.
So are we okay with
We
E?
do need more parking.
Any opposition to E or suggestions? Speak now.
I'm not sure how it reads at the end. Development remain priorities.
Oh, sorry, you're on F.
You're an F.
Oh, okay.
I heard no opposition to E though,
So
so
we're okay with E?
yes.
F. Okay.
All right, Kevin, you were saying.
The remaining priorities at the end of the sentence, that just doesn't.
I don't know what that is. Yeah, support of mixed-use development remain priorities.
So I think it was a carryover from the way the original was worded, which was continuing efforts to support the village planning area, including traffic calming. Oh, it's exactly the same, okay.
Why can't we just put a period after development?
It must be remaining priorities, but where were they?
I mean, these are obviously priorities because they're listed here.
No, it's continuing, those efforts remain priorities.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay.
I see.
So they were priorities before and they are still priorities.
So
All right, well, I see your point.
That's just a different way of,
can we just take out remain priorities and just continue efforts?
Would be my suggestion.
That'd be all right.
yep.
So just put a period after development?
Yes.
And change continuing to continue.
Continue. Okay.
All right. So here comes the big issue. From 13I, not allowing extraction within the village planning area. So this is, I think, the only one that's a not rather than a do.
I mean, and honestly, that's about
The only way.
all you need to say about it. I mean, that was when we hashed this out, and that was a big compromise, that the village planning area became the prohibited zone.
Why don't we say prohibit?
We don't want to encourage.
Can we say prohibit? It sounds better than not allow. It seems to go flow better with the way the other statements are made. What?
Prohibiting
Or
extraction.
just-
When we say extraction,
prohibit,
I
I assume we're talking
Extraction?
about sand or mineral, not,
Not what?
I don't know, whatever other, teeth. You can extract other things. I don't know.
Natural gas.
Natural gas, you could.
Yeah, do we need to be a little more specific there? Oh,
You can't extract the basis of the street, I
Okay, so prohibiting extraction within the village planning area.
Okay. Is that good, prohibiting?
guess.
why not prohibit extraction?
Well, right now they're all ending ing words.
All right, well, not,
So
we
grammatically-
continue efforts.
So
That
we're
was
prohibiting,
I
right?
didn't write that down. Robert.
Preserve the
Robert made
town
that up.
green. I like it to be short and succinct.
Okay.
I thought we said prohibition.
We didn't finish this part, so I didn't know how it's gonna fit.
That's true.
It's exciting times, though.
We can adjust those.
Are we satisfied with prohibiting on G?
Yep.
Is that
For now,
good?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other, I hesitate to say this, any other additions to the village planning area for policies? We're making such great progress. Katie's texting now.
I'm not, I was just checking the time.
Just checking the results.
I am, but that's all right.
So if we follow this thing, this next should be goal 2, right? Is that correct?
No, this is all still in goal 1, just organized by planning area. So that because the policies were basically specific to
Okay, I got you.
planning areas, we
Gotcha.
kept that form.
Okay.
So,
What, Chris?
Just to,
Blah, blah, blah. Spit it out.
so would it make more sense to create a goal for, take your first page here, and where you talk about the village planning area, blah, blah, blah. Creating goal 1 is the village planning area shall be blah, 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 with the, and then have your policies below it.
Right,
And then move to goal 2, your rural planning area will be blah, 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 and
right.
here's all the goals
I
to
thought
do.
that, right, okay.
So instead of being one goal that comprises 3
Yeah,
planning
I-
areas, create 3 goals, 1 for each planning area.
I know, we were sort of debating this, or I was
yeah, we
debating
went
it.
back and forth on, because in that, do you have an overriding goal? But you're saying have just 1 for each.
I think the main goal should be to maintain these specific planning areas
Right.
that are described in the text. And then you go through and
Your policies line up with.
it's really one,
I mean, goal 1 could be, Bristol will maintain and enhance its natural, environmental, and historic settlement patterns.
period.
Period, that's goal 1. And
Yeah,
then goal 2 is, the village planning area shall be, whatever your verbiage is, whatever you want to put in there, and then here are the policies
could do
to
that.
get to that goal. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So, okay, so we have 1 overriding goal, then 3 planning area specific goals.
So you'll have 4 goals so far.
5, 6.
Yeah, okay, shut up,
An engineer, can you do math?
No,
Yeah.
my shoes are on.
Okay, you'll end up with 6 goals.
6? Okay.
Yeah.
Are folks okay splitting it up that way? I mean, it's basically the same.
Same concept.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
Then your policy under the
I
first
think we
one
were
would
getting
just
there,
be
Chris.
maintain.
You were.
planning
I
areas.
just-
right.
or
I see where you're
something.
going, I just put it all together.
Okay.
I'm ready to slash a lot more stuff.
You're
Or
right.
just shorten a lot of sentences.
Okay. Rural agricultural planning area.
Okay.
Policy A, seeking to preserve rural character at the same time as encouraging business and light industry growth.
You can imagine that was a compromise.
Yeah, it was.
I was like,
Folks okay with that as the compromise?
So I just have a question about that, okay? So if we use a sawmill, you know, like Tommy Lathrop's or Johnson or something like that, I mean, are they in the rural ag area? But they're really a heavy industry, right? I mean, are they defined as a heavy industry?
Light.
right.
No, I think that.
think it'd be heavy.
They had a-
Is it defined as
Oh,
heavy?
boy, I mean, they can scream.
Because I know there's, 3 different classes of light?
I think light
Yes.
defines most of the stuff is inside. a building. It's not true for either one of those locations.
I think maybe. I can-
Well,
So-
there's different levels of light industry,
Right.
correct?
Yes, there's 3 different levels. So probably the biggest,
But the sawmill doesn't even fall under industry, it falls under agriculture,
so
correct?
Well, some people think so, but I think we've struggled with this one over the years.
We have.
And I think we might have even given it its own category last time, I'll stand corrected. But it is
Yeah.
under somebody who was just dropped in here by parachute, it would be heavy.
It's me.
That's Sandra, yes.
Mhm.
Not really, because you're a forester, right?
Sometimes.
Well, sometimes, okay. We won't hold that for or against you.
So do we just ignore that? I mean,
Well,
There would be some minutia, but.
We must
I don't know.
address it someplace else. Just don't remember where.
So when you define your heavy industries, it was, heavy industrial uses engaged in large scale, 25,000 square foot greater, storage or manufacturing of products or processes that are harmful to the environment or pose significant risk to our residents. No heavy industrial uses shall be permitted in Bristol, including but not limited to heavy industrial uses whose processes rely on or produce the following: explosives, radioactive materials, petroleum refining, steel and iron manufacturing, does not include the fabrication, welding, and producing materials. Cement production, paper, pulp mash, slurry manufacturing. They sort of used a fairly general term when we did that. That was what we limited.
Okay, that's maybe how we did it, under that definition, if I,
So heavy industry is defined,
So
and
that-
everything else is.
They skate by.
Like,
But we also define lumber yards and,
Well, I think because it's not indoors, but it's still not a proper teacher to really work indoors. But
this light industry 3.
there's no, you know,
Is this in
really
the,
bad
It's in the zone.
pipelines coming off of it.
In the
Right,
definitions.
it's certainly not.
It's probably in there if you go all the way to the back.
back?
Under industry, there's light, class 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yep, okay.
So, light industries 1 and 2 basically really require indoor storage of materials. Class 3 is light industrial uses include industrial uses with greater potential of impact on either community or neighboring properties. They include uses with a total square footage of more than 25,000 square feet or the storage, whether indoor or outdoor, or a production area. So,
Maybe that's how we did it then. It would be the largest light industry class, because under the definition that Chris read, it would not include lumber,
under the heavy,
under heavy.
right.
It was quite a discussion, because we had a couple of people who were I felt very strongly that we should not have any heavy industry. So this was the compromise
Right.
we worked out.
And that's in the rural planning area. So how did the gravel pit fit into that then?
That was a very major compromise. It
Right.
took probably more than a year, maybe 2
Right.
years. And we drew a line as a compromise and said,
But that was the planning area line, correct?
yeah, but isn't that the same?
Right, but we're talking about the rural agricultural planning area
Oh,
now.
I don't, at the moment, it's not coming back to me what we decided there. I
what was
think,
the question, Katie?
So we're talking about the rural planning area,
Mhm.
which the extraction is not allowed in the village planning area, but it is allowed in the rural planning area.
Right.
So is that considered heavy? Or is that a completely
That was
different
a
category?
standalone, I mean, extract, the.
Okay, it's a different category though.
We defined that
For
very
definition.
specifically.
Okay,
plus there's a lot of pre-existing gravel. pits.
right, and so there's pre-existing,
And Lathrop
Lumber
would fall
yards,
into the village planning area. That's why that was.
yeah,
Yeah. We've
Okay.
still got the scars to show for it.
yeah. It was before my time.
Okay, so, back to policy A.
So I'm so youthful.
So I had crossed that out for some reason,
Oh, and the original one.
and well, in my notes of what I proposed for changes.
Right.
Any changes to A?
Yeah, where are we here?
Kevin was against it. Policy 10, and he had, in the original one, he had crossed out. But there's no reason given.
I think it's a contradictory sentence, you know. I think that's what it was, what it amounted to, is you're gonna be, you can't preserve rural character and then encourage industrial growth at the same time without having a major conflict there.
I think it depends on how it's planned and accomplished, you know, so if it's not compact and major development, it's different than,
I think you can. It's all how it's planned. You know, it's,
I can just see the big debate.
Well,
absolutely.
Well-
it could even be cognitive dissonance.
Because I think that, when you look through the original plan, that was just a general policy overarching, I mean, when you read that, that's more of a
Right. It could,
town-wide policy. It wasn't specifically devoted to the rural planning area.
so if we,
So maybe we
if we
should take
split
it
that
out.
out, then that goes under number 1 of the town in general, or
Some
number
way-
4 of,
I would make a note that, try to figure out where it might fit in better.
but
That-
more of a townwide.
That's more of a town-wide
specific
goal.
area.
And that,
and that could go under goal number 1 if we break that up,
Or number.
under the
Okay.
town.
does that make more sense, Kevin? Is a town policy, because that's what we were trying to, when we did that, was, it's a little broad, but that was the intent, was we want to make sure that we grow.
And in some ways, the next one is as well, because this policy B was under village planning area when it is really about everything outside of the village planning area, and its effects on the village planning area. So,
That's bringing back
Put
an
it in.
awful lot of memories.
Yeah.
and if you've listened to the Dollar General episode of Brave Estate, you'll, I imagine, see some places where it's coming back around again.
Yes, it's very similar. To Chris's point, though, that was more of a philosophical matter for the whole town. And I would say, Kevin, one way I'd look at that is, and that we have over the years looked at it, is there are certain kinds of businesses like wood products that also help encourage and sustain working forests in rural lands, the same in agriculture as well as forestry. If you have a thriving light industry that creates a market for the product of those lands, you're helping to sustain the rural character. At least that's how we looked at it.
Or you encourage a business to
Do the same.
put up a building that looks like a bread barn instead of a bread factory.
I never know whether you're serious or not.
Either do I.
I kinda like the cider place down in Middlebury.
Yeah, that would be an extreme example.
Yeah, but that's probably, that would be an example. Still an example.
Okay, so for policy A, and we haven't really gotten too much into policy B, to move those to a whole town goal or whole region.
You mean A?
A is.
A.
You're
and
asking about B
then- And then
now.
potentially B.
That's a little more specific, though.
Well, it's in the original, it's in the village planning area list, but it really is about prohibiting things outside the village planning area. So it doesn't actually make sense there. Maybe it does.
So what's the proposal here?
I don't,
I'm lost.
It doesn't really,
it's a hard one.
We could move it just back into village planning area.
Well, no, because you're talking about the rural planning area.
but
You're talking about not locating a large,
you'd also have to put that in the rural conservation area as well.
Right.
that was another spirited discussion. You actually had, well, you had a couple of people, maybe three, who felt very strongly about this idea, but you actually had a couple of people who said the grocery store we have isn't big enough. And they wanted a place where there could be a bigger one. So they lost.
Yeah,
They lost. I didn't realize it was such a problem. When I get sent over there to get something, I can usually find it.
It's not big enough for 'em.
Okay.
Look how well that worked in Heinsberg, too.
Right.
I'm checking the time again.
So one way you can do is just
Yeah.
change it from a negative to a positive and move it back to the village planning area. So instead of saying you're prohibiting in the other areas, state something that the village planning area is the proper location for a future grocery, stores. Because again, that's your policy. And again, then you make more of a positive than a negative, and you call out where you want to see it.
Well, I also think that it could be worded in a way where it really talks about planning and how something is cited. Because we developed commercial areas in the rural planning area. And,
I'm with you 100% on this.
right, it's just how this is worded, because this is about planning and how it's done. So I can't come up with it right now, but
But you see where I'm going to make it more
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
positive instead of prohibitive spin on it?
so we're trying to
Or even
avoid,
the town-wide one about directing
General.
that to,
right, so it goes back to that kind of clustered development with open space. You can have these things as long as they're planned correctly, but we need to, I'm not gonna be able to reword that right now.
No, I mean, that's something, this could be one that's going to need some serious
Yeah.
noodling.
Okay,
Um,
we will noodle and resend.
Okay, I think, let's try to get down to, let's try to do 3 more
There's only 2
policies.
here, so
Oh, all right, let's try to
let's
finish this
page.
Well, could I
page.
have a little, what are we doing with A and B here? I mean,
We
It's
are,
okay, we all know.
And it's on video. No.
we'll
Okay,
go back to the table.
A is gonna go under a general goal 1, say it.
okay,
And so then the policy B is going to,
It
we're
has
gonna
a pin in
reword
it.
that.
And its destination is unknown
I
at
said
this
it
point.
has a
Destinate-
pin in it.
Destination unknown, and we're on C now.
Okay, policy C, supporting current use programs and other programs that minimize taxes for those keeping property in its undeveloped state. I added for agricultural or forestry use, but folks can, that's just because that's what current use generally is.
Yeah. My only concern is if some new current use concept comes along, and we don't update this data.
But do we need to even say that? I mean, is that a land use, isn't that just a policy that is important? Do you feel like we need to say that?
Well,
It's a state program that,
We can't deny anybody
don't have
that.
much to do about it.
No, but with supporting,
what's the-
it, so
yeah.
you try to write the verbiage so that you're, so you
Encouraging land use program,
I
right?
think it's
Like,
important
I mean,
to
so-
acknowledge
Yeah,
that it's an important force for keeping land
Okay,
undeveloped.
because it
Okay.
is taking tax off the rolls
okay.
in order
All
to
right,
keep
so I didn't know if it, I mean, it's not,
productive use.
so it's just a belief that we have, that we believe it's an important program.
That's a good way to describe
Okay.
it.
All right.
so we okay with C?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. D,
Where's our farmer representative?
Yeah, and that,
Is there zoning that restricts farming based on side effects?
no.
So it won't be too hard to avoid.
That's right, that would be another belief.
so what's a farming side effect? Dust?
We once.
he's gonna give
Smell.
us the answer. 'cause
We
he
once
knows.
had
Odor, that kind of thing?
a farmer
Let him speak.
who had a neighbor who bought a small lot. It complied with zoning, so it must have been a couple acres. Next to his field, which the neighbor complimented him on because it was corn or hay and very attractive. But then there came a time when the farmer spread manure to resupply the nutrients, and the neighbor called the governor's hotline. And so that particular member thought we should have some language,
Mhm.
and most of us agreed.
Every spring, fall at work, I would get calls about the stench in the building and to do something about it.
Yes, you better.
And my
kinda
comment back was, you think it stinks in here? Go outside.
Is it kind of like the dryer sheets?
Oh, it's worse than that.
Well, if you live right next to the, I mean, living manure in the fall, but it's a necessity. And that was, I mean, there's numerous.
That's one of these, okay, it's kind of like last night, it's like, what?
Hey, I think
You gotta figure out why this is in here.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, I agree,
Well,
but I don't think we should have policies that we should try to figure out why they're in here.
well, the other reason why that policy is here.
I know, but everyone else is gonna be reading it.
Well, you'll remember next time when I'm gone.
All right, what are you trying to
Because
say?
during the writing of this too was also the Ferrisburg wildflower Bryson Farm pit fallout. That the wildflower lady was claiming that the manure pit that the Bryson Farm was using was tainting her wildflowers. So Ferrisburg was looking at trying to rewrite zoning to prohibit manure pits within so close to, or spreading manure so close to certain processes, and then we were like, we want none of that. Ag's got to do its thing.
So where this come, I mean, this could come up with hemp, this could come up with other.
Yeah, and there's a lot of.
So.
Could we just say restriction on farming?
I think we just leave it the way it is.
Yeah, the unfair
Okay.
kind of leaves a little wiggle room for judgment, which, you know, I think you don't want to write it off the table completely.
Well, you could put onerous.
Yeah, what's unfair? Or,
Like zoning restrictions, place onerous
find another word for
restrictions
that,
on
or-
planning side.
Unjust, no.
It's a big word, I learned it.
It's a very good
Yeah, I
word.
like it.
You just learned that
It
word?
goes a lot with regulation.
It does.
Onerous?
That's a farmer.
Onerous.
Yeah, people move into.
Are you guys gonna take that one, onerous?
Move
I
inside the
like
farm and
onerous.
complain about the smell.
Jeez.
Or they move inside the airport and complain about the noise.
That's right, they do.
All right, we have one vote for onerous and one for unfair. Raise your hand for onerous.
I'm for the Reader Digest.
You what?
The Reader Digest, that's where I learned that word.
Okay.
It's a good one. I'll go with Bill on that
Okay.
one. We gotta give him some time
Onerous.
there.
Throw him a bone.
That's right.
Throwing them a bone.
I don't think we need to make it that big of a deal with it.
Okay.
All right, we're on to E here.
Policy E, seeking opportunity, this is one where I rephrased it.
Oh, here we go.
Is it? Seek opportunities to encourage greater use of PUDs in the rural agricultural planning area and flexible density.
It almost seems like that second part should be broken out and put into the village planning area for
Um,
breaking it down into separate sections.
I don't actually think we should use the term PUDs, and only because I think we need to use a more general term for zoning tools or something, because there's a lot of different,
I mean,
and PUDs are not necessarily the way to go. to
and that's why
get
the
certain-
flexible density-based zoning statement.
Yeah.
That's actually,
If you use density-based, is better, because
yeah.
actually in the body of the text, you know, where they have the PUD description, and they have the other description, which I don't know what it's called, I think it's density-based,
Yeah.
but they're really similar. So, yes, hello.
I mean, you can
You
shorten
know what,
that
I think we should do it more general, I don't think
Yeah,
we
I was
should call
saying,
out
you can
PUDs.
shorten that sentence right down to encourage the greater use of density-based zoning in the rural ag planning area. Done. And I think it.
So just take the PUDs out? Yeah, take pride in that
Because
other.
it's in such a,
Okay.
Start the sentence with encourage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could you do that again?
Encourage greater use of, and instead of PUD, put density-based zoning
Got it.
in the rural ag planning area.
Maybe then we then say to encourage compact development outside the village planning area, or cluster development outside the village area? Or just to encourage something? Or I guess we can just make that simple statement,
I
that's
think
fine.
that, I
Maybe
think
it's
Chris
policy.
nailed it, I mean.
What?
I mean, we should try to create a simple policy.
Yeah, because it's not, all right,
Okay.
good.
So can somebody reread that, how it's gonna go?
Encourage greater use
use
of density-based zoning in the rural agricultural planning area.
Okay, got it.
flexible density,
No, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, we're just gonna say density-based
just
zoning.
density.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different things.
Models.
Everybody okay with that?
Is that supported in the zoning, the density-based?
It is.
Does it actually say
Somewhat,
density
just by
based?
PUD,
Well, there's
or
PUDs, it's PUDs based.
what other tools do we have
That's
to?
all we have
Not a
at this point. Which is why if you make this a goal, you can then go in and
We
tweak
can
your
add some
zone.
more.
You actually use your town plan to go in and you add and modify the PUD and or add density tools.
Because density-based zoning.
Wait, that
could
sounds like how it's
be-
supposed to work.
On to F.
Trying, man, I'm trying.
So that could be something
Okay,
like.
so this is an added one because of the energy plan. Encourage, could change it to support, renewable energy development that meets siting guidelines in the rural agricultural planning area. Since
But
it's the
that-
preferred.
Do you wanna
it's
say
the
That's a
preferred?
suggestion for any area though, is it not? Not just the rural planning area, because
Uh,
it's village.
That's our preferred energy area.
So do we want to say
This would
preferred?
be solar arrays, for example.
Right.
I got you.
That the preferred area
Got it. Then, okay.
is only
I
the
understand.
rural agricultural planning
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
Okay. Next.
Okay, so there was not a separate section in the original one for rural conservation planning area.
Excuse me, is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So current use, again, is a fairly major program within those conservation planning areas. I don't know how much agriculture there is in what we have as the rural conservation area. I think it's mostly forested.
I think you're right, there's not much, if any.
He'll, just a tiny bit down on, but along Sylvia Coffin's property.
So maybe,
Can't remember if that's in the conservation or not, Bill.
I mean, so we can,
Look on the map.
so I can do the agricultural and forestry use.
Would that be, no, that wouldn't be there.
So
Yeah.
there's the pond.
Which one of the roads up on there is that?
No, it's easy, yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's Bach.
Okay, I gotta pull that. Wow.
I have one.
Okay, so well,
Can you on all of them? I'm good.
okay, so
I think south of the pond, it might be some,
agricultural.
yeah, not
I
much.
think you farm up to the pond though.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so we can, if there are agricultural current use programs, we can include the word agricultural and forestry use. So I think
I mean,
that's
adding agriculture in here.
fairly straightforward. Yeah, so I'll add the word agricultural. And then policy B is from basically with the forest fragmentation, forest block section. This is what we hashed out.
Yeah.
Discouraging fragmentation, may sound familiar. I think Bill wrote it. When development occurs within highest priority forest blocks.
Yep, it's a compromise.
You need to
Okay.
mention.
So So we're okay with that, B?
Yeah, so, well, the habitat connectors are actually mostly in the rural agricultural area.
Okay.
Okay, did you want to keep going, or
I
give it
think
time?
it's,
Are we, the rest, I think, have not changed. They've just been
10 of 9.
put together.
Are we on goal 2?
We could try to wrap it up. When do we have, how do people feel?
Right.
I mean, I assume you'll come back to this, so then you'll take this, your policy, and then go back into the meat and potatoes of the.
I mean, we have a little rearranging to do. It's getting kind of late. How do people feel?
Either way, it's gonna be a month and a half before we're really back on this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Should
let's
finish
hit
it.
these two. Let's hit them.
We're gonna hit it?
We're gonna go. Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
goal number 2.
so this is our goal number 2, which is also taking into account important cultural and natural resources of our community. So this is across all of the areas. So policy A was what was goal number 4. So the town will provide and maintain, it said conditions. Because this is the land use chapter, I changed it to land uses, promoting the health, safety, and welfare of its residents.
Well, that kind of,
Is that reasonable, or should it stay as conditions?
I don't know, I think that whole policy maybe shouldn't even be here because that sort of ties into emergency management and the health and safety section that we did. I don't know if this is really a land use,
It's very nebulous.
a land use.
So the way,
That's about the Reader's Digest.
It is, I have 2. That's, I'm out. That's
You're
it.
out for today, tomorrow's a new day.
so the way I see that sort of coming into play with land use would be with some of the industrial, or if there's chemical
I mean,
siting.
that was the intent.
If you're not putting it next to the school, or,
I think saying the town will provide and maintain conditions is setting the town up for expenses beyond comprehension.
Yeah, I don't know if
Stage.
that's, I don't know. I'm not fond of that one.
okay.
I had actually struck it in my notes.
Yeah.
The next one's okay though.
So A is out, or A?
Sounds like A is out.
deliberated? A is out.
Sounds like it's striking.
I think that we covered that and that's just too broad.
Okay. B.
Identify and protect significant and historic structures, sites, and districts.
Yeah.
So isn't that redundant back to your historic?
Yeah, and so is the next one, is back to
Yeah.
the scenic resources.
I had actually struck that one as well.
I think we've already said that. I don't know.
Where, I mean, B, where have we said that? I know we said.
We have a,
Historic resources section.
yeah, historic resources
I know I've read it
and,
someplace, but
Somewhere.
so that's out?
well,
I mean, let's not be redundant. If it's someplace else, let's,
I mean, A, B, and C are redundant.
strike it.
yeah, they are.
Okay, A, B, and C, take out
C also?
That's definitely redundant.
with the
'Cause
natural
we
resources
have-
section.
Yeah, we have in the natural resources section.
Okay.
I don't know if we say that, but. Right, we're on D.
We're on D, I think.
Yep.
Encourage, so yeah, this one may or may not make sense in this section. Encourage reasonable development patterns and careful planning as to setback, topography issues, drainage, and rights of way through creation and/or enhancement of current town regulations, including subdivision and site plan regulations.
You said that in one breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
C, yeah?
Caesar.
C's
I had put lines through this one.
It could be better worded. I mean, the intent is correct. You have to look back at what your actual goal is. So somewhere we have to create a goal, policies around
Yeah, well, that's what,
protecting.
that's what we're
all
trying to
natural
do.
resources. I know.
Will be regulated.
Well, it's a a big sentence. What if we had a period after right of way?
Here's mine.
And this will be achieved through the creation of, and the rest of it.
The reasonable and careful are.
I guess what are we actually trying to say here? I don't think it should be reasonable.
You think it should be
It should be-
unreasonable?
No, it should be encourage development patterns. Now, what are we encouraging development patterns to be? The sentence doesn't really come to any conclusion.
Patterns that
Take into
take
account,
into account topography issues, drainage, and rights of way, period.
setback.
Well, the setback is,
Hmm?
you're not taking into account setback, you're taking into account the topography, drainage.
I think setback is meant to be in with topography issues and drainage and rights of way. Setback from property line or roadway or so on.
Right,
Speaks to siting.
right.
Well, do you want to get that specific?
Now, I guess what is the point? What are we trying to say with this sentence? That's,
You're trying to,
I'm not
you're trying to
really sure.
preserve your natural resources.
Right, so we're not saying that anywhere though. We're saying it in a roundabout way. So encourage development patterns that so to, I don't know if that's right, preserve your natural resources and,
And cultural resources. So encourage development patterns that preserve cultural and natural resources using, yeah. Careful planning.
Just look at the natural resources.
what language is actually written.
Once again, I did not write this. It was already in there.
We know.
Bill, this seems like it's one of those sentences that we compromise the heck out of. Just, it's so wordy and painful.
Yes, I think you're right, Chris.
Well, it seems to speak right to the language in the zoning that when the conditional review, you have to work with the existing natural features and
I mean,
cultural
when you talk about
features.
natural resources, I mean,
And,
your topography and your drainage, those are big things. I mean, it's, I mean,
it's a rewrite.
all these policies might be rewrites.
Well, this was another reason for doing it like this, to like break them up and see if, you know, what we have
So
left.
these are rewrite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We gotta figure out why it's in there first.
Okay, E?
Encourage the use of renewable natural resources for agriculture, silviculture, and compatible small businesses and light industries, particularly those that add value to local resources. Use forestry throughout this. Are we switching to silviculture here to just to throw
Must have
people
been.
off?
Must have been a different day.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, it's about cultural resources.
Yeah.
We're gonna say forestry?
It's cultural forestry.
So the only time we used silviculture previously on a regular basis was, I mean, that's what the,
Let's zone it.
that's the state.
So you gotta grow the trees back after you cut them?
Yeah.
Is that-
It's the actual growing of them, I guess.
Silviculture is management of,
Right.
not just the hacking thereof.
Not the extraction.
Oh, that's painful.
It can sometimes too, be extreme.
Okay.
So the yeah, because that's how they refer to it in statute.
Could we say forestry silviculture, or is that?
So we're just
Okay.
replacing
Either one.
silviculture with forestry, is that correct?
Forestry.
No. Yes?
Yeah.
We can do that.
Forestry
But
instead
they're
of...
used synonymously.
Yeah, by everyone who's not a forester, I think they're...
Right, I think
Yes.
so. And even many foresters
In
use
some of
them.
the area.
Yeah.
So which one would you prefer to see, Bill?
That was E.
Which would you rather see?
I think forestry is fine.
Agriculture, it's just becoming too redundant.
Yeah.
Party.
Yeah, area.
Are we okay with E?
They're supposed to have to get a dictionary.
With that little change?
Yeah.
Okay, F.
How's the F? Prohibit quarrying, which includes mining, and produce fair town zoning regulations with respect to excavation of soil, sand, gravel, and rock.
Boy, did we have a big discussion on this one.
So how is that different?
Yes.
That's quarrying.
Well, rock is, probably. Could be.
Well, not if it's loose,
Same.
right? If you're just picking it up as
Yeah,
opposed to.
quarrying is blasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is, part of it, the extraction process, quite often blasting is part of a standard part of the average gravel pit to minimize the size of large boulders, where they aren't actually extracting like granite or marble out of the ground for resale. I mean, when you think of quarrying, that's what you're thinking pan stone, or you're thinking buried granite mines,
Pike.
or pipe. So,
It's not quarrying if you go way down without blasting. You're able to dig or cut your way through.
I wish we'd had you when we were having this debate.
I bet you want to relive it. go right back through it all.
So are we okay with that?
We can probably live with it. We actually had one person who was very much against quarrying, but he was for rock. So that's how we got this language.
sense.
It doesn't have to make sense. It was probably 9 o'clock when we came up with it.
Guess what, it's 9 o'clock
Everybody's
now.
good with that.
Okay.
They look better and better the closer that we get to 9 o'clock.
Kind of like why they put the budget as the last article on the,
Yes.
on the.
More than half of everyone will be gone, and we can fly through all these.
No, there was,
monetary
no one
items.
even asked a question. Everyone's like, finally, fine.
Everybody had a question quota used up before.
Okay.
Land use planning.
Land use planning regulation. So this is the more about the process.
So we didn't
Goal.
have very many policies left in under
I
goal.
think we have 2 and a rewrite.
Okay.
All right. Policy A, property owners will be protected from a government taking for the use of the public without fair compensation.
Gee, I wonder where that one came
I
from.
hope so.
That came from the Tea Party way back then.
It did the original Tea Party.
Did you write, was that yours, Bill?
That is the takings clause.
It's taken out of the Constitution.
Article 4?
Thomas Jefferson wrote that.
Yeah, he had some property he did not want to give up.
Okay, does that, does
Keep
that
the
stand in
fence, you
here?
know?
Right.
Keep the fence.
That's right.
Okay.
The lease is still out there.
I
They're
had,
half
I
of
had
it.
struck it.
He's struck, of
Oh,
course he
Kevin,
did.
you still my heart.
Are you okay with that, Kevin?
He's not okay with that.
You're not okay with that?
Well, it's redundant. I mean, it's describing eminent domain, so
Well,
what's the town got to do with
But
it?
part of it is, if you look at the goal above it, where you've added the line that land use planning and regulations will be made through the process that is fair, transparent, and maintains a reasonable balance. That's your goal, so what are the policies that support that? So you need to come up with something, and so this is, that was,
Yeah, there's, the town gonna protect somebody from eminent domain?
Well, it encourages us to be mindful of the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It says government, it doesn't restrict it to not being town government as well.
and I just know
Yeah,
from
so-
working with other planning commissions, one of actually the PUD process, I have one time that it took 3 meetings for them to understand that the set-aside land concept was not public land. They couldn't get it through their heads.
It can be public land,
Can be.
It's not mandated.
not public.
Community.
Yeah, community.
It can be community, but not, so somebody still owns it, and if I'm still a private owner of that set-aside, I can still say, don't walk on it.
Right.
So, and that sort of adds to this to make sure that you, when you write things like that, that's something like Kevin, I would say to add this line.
I'm not hard on it, just means redundant
Okay.
from state and federal regulations.
Sometimes people forget. You'd be surprised how many people don't know about this in the Constitution.
So where are we, folks, today here?
I'm not teaching it these days.
Who wants to do what?
Well, I hope we'll leave it.
Okay, we're leaving it. Policy B. The town will seek a reasonable balance between the needs of people who live within the village planning area and those who do not.
I think that's fine. Next.
That does seem reasonable.
That's reasonable.
C.
Bristol will invite and encourage participation of all residents into the planning process.
I think that's great. Let's go.
You are invited, Jeff, and encouraged.
D.
Okay, D. Land use regulations, including zoning regulations, will be administered in a fair and consistent manner in accordance with applicable development land use policies of the plan. Fair and consistent being the key words there.
Sounds pretty good.
Good policy.
And then policy E is a little more concrete. Affected property owners will be notified if zoning changes are being considered that will in any way impact possible uses of their property.
That one goes back,
We do that all the time.
Do we?
well,
Yes, we do. We have the, when somebody's.
Well, it's a
planning
public
something-
hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that's a law.
this would speak to zoning changes in terms of changing the zoning
Regulations,
regulations.
which has
It's
to
gonna
be
change
warned.
your, yeah.
Oh, I see
And
what
it
you're
gets
saying.
sent, and also anytime
No, I see what
any
you're saying.
permit, any
That's right.
permit or any, we have to notify all the abutters.
Yeah, but we're not doing.
I don't think we need to list.
Changes.
So Rob is right, we're
Stated
not
here.
doing zoning changes.
It's this,
Right.
it's changes to this that
Right.
it speaks
So
to.
that, right, and then that has, changes to that has to be warned. And the public is notified
Right.
through the warning.
that's true, but
Is this is a courtesy?
it's a courtesy and it's a goal and a policy. It arose when one time there were a wave of changes going through the county. Like the regional planning commission might have had something to do with this.
Hey,
It was a long time ago, about 30 years ago, and people's rights to use their property were changing,
mhm.
and they didn't find out about it until they came in for a permit. And so the answer was, well, it was in the newspaper. Well, if they didn't read the notices section, they missed it.
Okay, that's fair.
So it's a goal. It's,
Yeah.
we won't.
So the goal is to.
I'd have no idea anything was going on. I don't read the newspaper or come into town unless I need something, so.
So, I mean, Moncton's Ridgeline Protection Zone is a great example. I mean, they basically took away development rights of 25% of the town without, and no one knew it other than one public hearing was held.
Yeah.
And if you don't get the Addison, I know that's the technical.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, that is one of my major complaints about processing information, not complaints. It's one of my things that concerns, because you can avoid a lot of trouble, and if everyone's informed. So that, I'm just trying to get a little more information. I don't have a problem with it.
So, okay,
Okay, I
okay with
think.
that? And then moving the last three.
Can I just, maybe if zoning policies are being considered instead of changes? Because changes sounds like specific, well, I guess,
Well, and moving forward, we may have to change it from zoning to planning. Changes.
Right.
You almost want to include the word regulation in there somewhere. It's sort of like a change to the zoning regulations or land use regulations.
Are being
Yeah.
continued.
Because that changes it, instead of me changing it from I'm using it as a dairy farm to a chicken farm, it's the town is saying, you
Right.
can't be a dairy farm, or, you can't say that, but I mean, that's the difference, when the
or
town.
so maybe notified of townwide or municipal land use regulations or town land use regulations.
Regulation changes,
Well, this sounds like it's
land use regulation changes.
Yeah.
addressed more to individuals because, you know, if you change a, say you change the zoning. from
Okay.
So what do we got for E, folks?
Affected property owners will be notified if land use regulation changes are being considered that will in any way impact possible uses of the
Okay.
property.
That'd be good.
That's it. All right.
I think it's a little clearer.
Okay. All right, so, two that
Are people
I
okay with
think
moving?
make more sense in the economic development section.
So I'm confused, the next, the recreation section one.
I've got a
Why
walk
would we be moving that specific to recreation? Why wouldn't it be underneath, stay underneath 3 with those rather broad range protections?
I think because it's not really a planning and regulation thing, but maybe I'm thinking about it the wrong way. I guess who is doing the entering of the private property?
Could be anybody, could be people walking through Boaz and causing a fit with those guys.
it could be.
Just one person that
Could be-
got
could be
mad,
snow-
right?
Or they could be talking about something like snowmobilers,
Yeah.
you know.
Were you thinking trying to access the recreation areas going onto private property?
Well, that was my thought, but I guess if there are people entering, it's not necessarily recreation, it's more of a transportation.
Well, isn't it-
And actually, that, the intent
Isn't
of
that
that-
just like the law? I
The
mean,
intent was more actually that the zoning administrator or the town can't just go knocking, can't wander around aimlessly on your yard looking for violations, is what that
Okay,
protection was.
so I think that is what,
Isn't
Am I
that
correct, Bill?
also
It's
a
the-
law? Just a law?
It's,
It is state law.
there's some dispute on that.
I guess
so
that's
this
what,
is a town official would not enter. This,
I believe that's what, is that what we intended doing with it? 'Cause I remember we had a long discussion on that.
Yeah, it would apply to Bristol as to a town official, but it was really meant to be any official.
so we're making a statement that Bristol town officials,
or any town official, or any
Or-
public officials.
Right.
Any public official.
Well, now that you've got me thinking about it, there's a couple of well-meaning environmental groups that sometimes go looking for things on land without permission. So I think it's a good general policy. In our case, we always permit it, provided we can send somebody with them and get the results of their research,
Mhm.
which I think is a fair compromise. But if they're looking for something that would then be used to restrict the rights of the landowner,
Mhm.
and you don't even tell the landowner, that seems unfair.
Okay, so this, my understanding is we could move this up into the land use planning and regulation should be fair section, but maybe clarify who we're talking about entering. But it's not a,
Yeah, I think it should be a little more clear. I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as we talked about it and thought about it, it occurs to me it is a more general statement than just
Right.
officials.
So are you gonna rewrite that, Andrew?
yes, I will volunteer. Okay, so we're done with this. If you, and then
Why
Sounds like we
don't
need
we
to
plan
revisit
to do a rewrite and then send it out for another
we can
view?
revisit it. Sounds like next meeting is with Adam and maybe pretty full. So.
I think we're just doing
Anything
the
to that?
subdivision. Just, it's,
Yeah,
I mean, you could.
I mean, I can send it, and so folks have a chance to look at it, if that works.
Bill will be chairing that meeting.
So the next, it's 31720.
Did you hear
and
that?
Subdivision, and what is it, chapter 9? Is that the one you let us, that we concentrate on that? Chapter 9?
Yes, section 9, yes.
Section 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bill,
Yeah.
guess what? You're gonna be the chair of that meeting.
Oh, boy.
Goodness.
Well,
And so someone else might have to take minutes.
Chris and Bill and the other people will help me out.
And by then you'll have another full edition of the Reader's
I'll
Digest.
have 2 or 3
So
other.
are we ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I try to get circumscribed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
You
okay.
can save that
Adjourn.
for next time.